Last year, we did a story about the mayor of Sunrise, Florida. During the story, we interviewed a group of retirees, residents of the town, who got into a lively debate about the controversial mayor.
Shut up! Who the hell's talking? Sue me!
So sue me. The statement used to be a way to end inconclusive arguments. Today, if you challenge someone to sue you, he very well may. He may not even wait to be asked. Nobody suffers in silence anymore. The doors of America's 17,000 courtrooms are now opened wider than ever before, as institutions like the family and the church have less and less influence on American lives. The courtroom seems to have moved in to bridge the gap. America seems to be on a litigation binge. If you come into Los Angeles Superior Court any morning, you'll see hundreds of lawyers like these, lining up to book time on the judge's court calendar.
Number 46.
Plaintiff or defendant?
Defendant.
Cases against doctors, against municipalities, against asbestos companies, airlines, and IUD manufacturers. Students are suing teachers. Children are suing parents. Parishioners are suing their churches. There seems to be no area of American life free from the court appearance. At least that's the way they feel in the ladder business, as here at the Lynn Ladder Company in Massachusetts. This company is typical of what's happening. As of the beginning of 1986, Lynn Ladder Company has 23 pending lawsuits against it. Bernie Klein runs the business.
Every time we manufacture a ladder, we're manufacturing a potential lawsuit.
Ladders haven't changed very much since Laurel and Hardy did this routine. The only difference is that the way things are going now in the ladder business, Stan and Ollie, instead of picking themselves up and dusting themselves off, are bringing all kinds of suits against ladder companies.
The most predominant thing is what you call failure to warn and instruct. We're supposed to advise them, caution them against all the improper uses of a ladder.
You've got signs all over your ladders now. Don't do this, don't do that.
Well, let's start at the top here. Do not stand or sit. Here's one over here. Do not stand above this or you lose your balance. Here's one, when you open the ladder, don't use that as a step. Here's a safety first label over here telling you do's and don'ts. Here's this code saying the ladder conforms to OSHA. Here's our point of save label. Now, here's another sign over here. And they claim we haven't got enough labels on the ladders now.
What kinds of suits do you lose? Have you lost many?
We lost a suit last year. A fellow was shingling a barn, put a ladder up with a staging, and he put the ladder up in a manure pile. Temperature was 20 degrees. When he was working in that area, a few days later, the temperature was 40 degrees. The ladder slipped, poor fellow fell, and unfortunately, he got hurt his ankle, and we're sued. Unfortunately, we didn't warn him about the viscosity of horse manure. So that's our class. $300,000.
$300,000?
$300,000.
In 1985, federal civil cases, which represent only a small percentage of the total cases filed in this country, increased 3.5 times over 1961. In New York City, a bus rider sued the city for $700,000 for injuries received while being jostled on the bus. A patient in a hospital also sued for $700,000 when she burned herself smoking in bed, on the grounds that the hospital should not have allowed her to smoke. A man who couldn't get admitted to Studio 54, a New York City disco which was hard to get into, sued and won $50,000 for mental distress. A man injured himself diving into the surf at Newport Beach, California, and then successfully sued the town for $6 million.
Everybody has an aunt who knew somebody in California who had a friend whose daughter had exactly almost the same kind of injury, and collected $8 million and went to medical school. So why isn't that happening here? Why is this jury considering a $200 award?
Judge Vincent Famia is with the district court in Upper Marlboro, Maryland.
We have reached the point where you can sue people, and we have a case like this in this courthouse right now, where the man has sued because the product was produced in such a way, not negligently, but that he could use it negligently. You understand? He's suing the manufacturer for producing something that did not guard against his own negligence. And people actually believe that that should be compensable.
No area of litigation has aroused more bitterness than malpractice suits. It's become so bad that in Massachusetts, some obstetricians and orthopedic surgeons have refused to take on any new cases in protest against the high cost of malpractice insurance. Dr. Mitchell Carlin is a surgeon in Los Angeles and the head of the Los Angeles County Medical Society.
1 out of every 3 obstetricians are sued.
1 out of 3.
Yes, sir. And they get sued once every 3 years.
Does this result in over-testing?
Yes, sir. The cost in health care is about $350 billion. 30% of that goes for defensive medicine, just to protect ourselves from liability suits. There are certain things that all of us do. We routinely get a chest x-ray and an EKG on almost everyone that goes into the hospital. That's not always necessary. But if you don't get it, and heaven forbid there's a cardiac irregularity on the table, then you're sued because you didn't have it. But it's not always necessary.
And you think attorneys encourage this litigious atmosphere?
I don't think they encourage it. I think they make it. The name of the game is money.
What about the whole area of contingency fees? Somebody can sue and they don't risk a cent unless they win.
Yeah, let's assume we did away with contingency fees. Then we can't have contingency fees because they tend to engender tort suits. Well, then what you've done is you've created a whole body of law available only to the upper middle class, only to people who can afford the lawyer. So what happens to the guy in the ditch, in the uninsured ditch, who's down there because his boss said, get down in that ditch and fix that pipe, and the thing caves in, and now he is laid up? What happens to that man? He doesn't have the money to afford a lawyer. If the lawyer cannot take it on a contingency, what kind of representation is this man going to get? Is he going to get any representation?
We will search a hypothetical Mr. Hayes. First name.
Of course, in the 80s, you can't have a sociological conflict without computers. Doctors can now plug into a service called Physicians Alert. It will tell you if a prospective patient is in the habit of suing his doctors.
This individual had 3 medical malpractice suits, 2 personal injury suits having to do with auto negligence, and also a lawsuit having to do with other damage suits.
Lawyers know about computers, too. They have a service which will tell them which doctors have been sued and how successfully. It's not only the number of cases, it's the size of the awards. $1.25 million paid when the Weather Bureau failed to predict a storm that caused the deaths of 3 fishermen. $2 million to a surgeon who tripped over some cans in a supermarket. $17 million paid by a school district after a gym accident. Who pays these huge awards or settlements? Well, the irony is that the ones who pay the most may have had the least to do with the negligence. It's called the deep pockets theory of compensation. Whoever has the money pays up.
Well, let's face it, you sue Harry Truck Driver. What's Harry Truck Driver got? He's got a wife and 3 kids. That's what Harry's got, and a mortgage and a home. But Harry drives for ABC Trucking, and they've got money. So you go for ABC Trucking. You don't go for Harry Truck Driver. ABC Trucking, of course, is Mr. Deep Pockets. I have a theory that no person should go unrequited. If you've suffered an injury, you hire a lawyer. He sues. He either wins or he loses. If he wins, you collect. If he loses, you hire another lawyer. You sued our first lawyer. He must be incompetent. So we'll sue him for malpractice. And we'll either win or we'll lose. If we win, some insurance company will pay. If we lose, we hire another lawyer. And we sue the second lawyer. And then sooner or later, you're going to hit the number.
But what we get furious about and what we're so disturbed about is that when we say $1 goes out in premiums, that the patient who's injured only winds up getting 19 cents of that dollar. The rest of it goes to the attorneys, to the courts, and to the expert witnesses. That's what we're so disturbed about. It's a money game. Certain people are milking a money tree, and we're saying enough is enough. Someone's got to put a cap on what the juries award and what the attorneys get.
I just don't know how you're going to put a cap on something like that. I just don't know how they intend doing it. I mean, what do you say, okay, no matter what happens to your child, it comes out that it's a basket case, but the obstetrician or the GYN, the obstetrician can only be liable up to 10,000, 100,000, a million. I don't know how you do that.
America's law schools have been turning out so many graduates every year that the number of lawyers in this country has almost doubled since 1970. 675,000 now and growing every year.
When 5, 6 years ago in San Francisco, there was a lawyer for every 107 people. Now there's a lawyer for every 60. And pretty soon it will be like every house will have its live-in lawyer. You need one to feed you and protect you from the rest of the lawyers.
Charles O'Brien has been a lawyer in San Francisco for 30 years.
But the question you have is how many lawyers can a society take without getting its wheel function running amok? More and more litigation, more and more use of the courts, more and more taking all kinds of disputes to the courts. We brought every problem the United States society has in the 1980s into court, dumped it on the table and said, okay, justices, sort it out. And, you know, as the man said, it's like the bear peeling the grape. He may do it, but it's a damn painful thing to watch.
Is anybody specifically at fault? Is it judges?
It's a story with very few heroes and no real villains. It's not as though lawyers are not needed. There obviously is a role for lawyers, and there are very bad and unjust situations which lawyers are needed to rectify. You know, you talk about pollution, you talk about asbestos poisoning, and there's no question if the contingency fee and plaintiff lawyers hadn't been around to remedy that or to bring the rights in, they never would have been represented. But when you start to take a look at how far that goes, more and more the courts are reaching back in time, and they're reaching into other people's pockets with a theory of deep pockets. And that, again, has caused people to say, well, there's no point in getting insurance. I'm the deep pocket fellow. I'm not going to carry this thing anymore.
And that's what's happening all over the country. Goods and services are being eliminated or cut back by agencies and municipalities that can't afford the high cost of insurance. In New York City, a tramway taking thousands of commuters across the East River to Manhattan every day closed down this winter when the insurance premiums skyrocketed. It finally reopened when the state agreed to cover any insurance claims. Consumer groups say the reason for the high premiums is that the insurance industry is trying to make up for some bad business decisions made a few years ago when interest rates were high. But for whatever reasons, the insurance crisis has been felt all over the country. In Scott County, Missouri, the jail closed down for a month while the county tried to get its insurance renewed. Cheyenne, Wyoming has been without municipal insurance since July of 1985. Recreational areas, playgrounds, anything with a potential lawsuit are threatened with the padlock. And manufacturers are beginning to halt the sale of products when litigation becomes overwhelming. Like the Copper 7 IUD, taken off the market in January when the company had 300 outstanding lawsuits and no more insurance. In companies like Bernie Klein's Lynn Ladder, the cost of litigation is sometimes more subtle. How much of your time do you spend going to court, giving depositions, talking to lawyers?
About 20%.
20% you should be building ladders, you're worrying about suits.
That is correct. Should be building ladders, worried about running my business with all the other problems of today of running a business, and we're taking all this energy to defend ourselves against suits.
We go to the legislature, it's 90% lawyers. We go to Congress, it's 90% lawyers. The courts, of course, are all lawyers. The big corporations don't make a move without asking their lawyers. Are we your prisoners?
Yes.
What do we do about it?
I think it's a situation in which the people are going to have to take back for themselves the questions of how far they want their courts to go. You can't have perfection, and sometimes there are wrongs that can't be remedied, and in our zeal to correct every wrong, I think we've gone too far.
Do you think lawyers are part of the problem?
Yes. Oh, I don't think there's any question about that. I don't think lawyers constitute the problem. See, you know how we are as Americans. We'd like a nice soft pill to take that will make the problems go away. So we say, oh, the whole thing is the lawyers, caused by the lawyers. We have more lawyers, and therefore we have more lawsuits. Well, that's just not so. It's just not the way it is. So are lawyers part of the problem? They certainly are. But so are courts, and so is everyone associated with the problem, including the aunt in California who says they know somebody who had the identical same problem and got $3 million. We're all part of the problem.
Every jury has to understand when you give an award, you know, $10,000 in compensable provable damages and $1 million in punitives, that $1 million gets passed on. When you've got states and cities and counties and day centers and restaurants and playgrounds without insurance, with no protection from us as lawyers, then society is going to have to respond. Of course, some of the response may be that our legal malpractice rates are going up too, because we're being sued by our brethren. In this state, in bigger counties, the rates are fast approaching what doctors are used to paying.
Lawyers suing lawyers.
Lawyers suing lawyers. And when the
On
piranha,
behalf of clients.
on behalf of clients. And when the piranha attack the barracuda, then maybe we'll get some fish reform.